Good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us. My name is Errol Southers. I'm the director of the Safe Communities Institute at the Saul Price School of Public Policy. And I am delighted to be able to open the Women Leading the Way Empowerment Panel, the last event of our Women's History Month. And I want to say a big thank you to Dean Goldman and an even bigger thank you to my associate director, Jessie Red, because all of these incredible events you've had this month have been her idea and her hard work. So we have another one to close out an incredible month. So let me just give you the list of outstanding panelists you'll be joined by today. We have Ariella Lowenstein, who is the Deputy Regional Director for the Anti-Defamation League. We have Leslie Ramirez, who is the Chief of the Los Angeles Schools Police Department. We have Mona Curry, who's the Emergency Manager in the Los Angeles Police Department, and Miriam Churchill, who is the Executive Director for Parents for Peace. I saved, if you will, the best for last. Your moderator today is going to be award-winning NBC4 journalist Beverly White, who will take you through this incredible session today, which is will go very quickly. Thank you for joining us, and Beverly, the session is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Southers. It is my honor to be a moderator for an event of this magnitude. These are women who keep our community safe, and they bring a wealth of experience to work every day. And lucky for society, lucky for all of us, they continue to lead with their hearts in the worlds of public safety and violence prevention. Without further ado, I'd like to address my first question to Mona Curry from LAPD. It has to do with just the fundamentals of why we're here. This will be a round robin question. Everyone will be asked the same question in a moment, but we'll start with Mona. What drew you to your line of work with the Los Angeles Police Department? And most importantly, what keeps you motivated?
That's a good question. Thank you, Beverly. I've been with the LAPD for the last year and a half, but before that, I was with the Emergency Management Department. And then before that, a few other departments within the city of LA. So, really my particular field, which is emergency management, when I was going to school, there really weren't any college programs that you can take. You couldn't take a college program and get a degree in emergency management. So for me, I knew I wanted to go into government, but I really wasn't sure what that would look like. And the doors just kept opening. And when they opened, I just went through. And so one thing led to another. And here I am. And I'll tell you what, being a civil servant is a privilege because we get to serve the community and make it better for everyone who, in my case, lives in Los Angeles. And I think I've done a lot of things that have benefited the communities around LA. I'm really proud of that.
And we're proud of you, Mona. Thank you for that response. Same question for Ariella Lowenstein with the Anti-Defamation League. What's your motivation and what drew you to this line of work? We know ADL is legendary for pioneering in the anti-hate space and seeking justice and fairness for all. But what makes it click for you, Ariella?
I think that's a really interesting question. This wasn't always my chosen line of work. I started in the nonprofit field right out of college, and I was actually within the Jewish community in another agency, and really didn't know in what direction I wanted to go, and went to grad school at USC, so go Trojans, I decided at that point that I actually wanted to apply for the CIA. And so I went in that direction as an analyst. I wanted to apply, and it didn't work out. But in the meantime, I had met somebody who worked for ADL, found out all the wonderful work they had done. And I think one of the things that draws me to ADL is, as you quoted in the beginning, the mission of the agency. The mission and the fact that it while born in the Jewish community, ADL really helps everyone. And it is an anti-hate organization that is over 100 years old, and we are as relevant today as we have ever been. So it continues to draw me. And now that I am a mother of 2 young boys, my work is more important than ever to hopefully create a better world for them when I'm not here.
Fantastic response, and congratulations on your family. This next question, the same question as it were, for Chief Ramirez. You are a leader with a title, a major title, and we'd like to learn what brought you to your line of work now that you're at the pinnacle, so to speak, and what, of course, keeps you inspired.
Of course. Like Ariella said, it wasn't initially something that I knew as a young person that this was going to be the career field. For me, it was something that later on in life piqued my interest. It was something that I thought maybe this is, something I'd like to explore, something I'd like to move into. But at that time, and I've been, with law enforcement for over almost 30 years now. So back in the early 90s, this career field was not something that was traditionally something that women went into. It was very much male dominated at the time. So it was very much something that I looked at, can I do this? Is this really the right place for me? But it definitely had an interest. And specifically, the interest was in serving students, serving young people. I'm a graduate of LA Unified, as many people know. And so I'm very proud to be, here serving the same district that I am a product of. But more so, I'm very proud of the career field that I chose, even though at the beginning, I didn't really know if it was going to be the right career for me. It turns out that it absolutely was. And public safety, serving students is something that, I'm proud to say I've been able to dedicate 30 years of my life to.
Well, continued success, and thank you for that response. Same question for Miriam Churchill. You're a psychotherapist with Parents for Peace. That's a big organization with a significant mission that's not just local, but international. We'll get into that in a moment. But first, of course, please share with us, if you can, your motivation and what led you to this place.
I think I was born into this motivation. So a little bit of background, so it's true I'm a psychotherapist, but really the real reason is that I was born in Casablanca in Morocco, and I am a biracial product of the 70s, which present a complication. So my father is a Muslim African and my mother is a white Christian. And in the 70s, it was very complicated to be me. And so I experienced firsthand, racism and prejudice, and and had a PTSD as a result of surviving hate, against being someone like me, and unfortunately, I experienced it from the two sides of my background. It was a complicated time, of the history, and so surviving violence and extremism, it became a curiosity for me about why people hate and hurt others, and why people hate and hurt themselves. So this question, was at the same time of my own survival and recovery from hate. In the street of Morocco, I was stoned and called a Jew because I was half Muslim and half Christian. And so I have experienced all kind of prejudice and hate, and it became a life mission. I became a therapist to find out why. And after the Charlie Hebdo attack was really the moment for me to understand why. So this is my mission statement.
Wow, an authentic testimony for sure. Thank you so much for choosing this line of work and for sharing your personal story with us just now. As women in positions to lead and inspire, I'd like to reverse the order. And this question is again for Miriam. Do you find your field, what you're working in, what you're doing right now, is it male dominated, or is it open to everyone who brings good ideas to the table?
So Parents for Peace is a nonprofit, and we are a mix of men and women, and kind of are drawn into this field mainly because they have been impacted by extremism. So it's not really discriminated by gender, because unfortunately what attracts this is tragedy. I would say though that because I'm a first responder and we have a helpline, most of the people that reach out to us are mainly women because they see the signs and they seek for help. And we don't see enough fathers. We have to kind of get the father to join, or men to join to be helping with this issue of extremism. So that would be my answer.
Okay, and Chief Ramirez, same question for you. People presume law enforcement is male dominated, but you're at the top of the heap. Was that an issue for you as you made your rise?
Absolutely not. I feel like women are emerging, in the field of law enforcement. Back in the 70s is when we first started to really see the presence of women in law enforcement become accepted, if you will, or common practice, if you would. And in the 80s, we started to see, women in law enforcement take on leadership roles. It started basically, the most notable one is in 94 when the first female African-American police chief was named in Atlanta. So women have been really making great strides in law enforcement. I was very fortunate that when I came on in the early 90s, my very first police chief was a female police chief. At that time, it was not very common to have a female as a police chief, and she was very much a role model for me. Probably, I didn't realize at the time what a role model she was at that time. But when I look back now, I took it for granted, and so now I look back and I think it was great for me to see that coming on and realize what the possibilities could be. Women started really breaking the glass ceiling in law enforcement in great strides in the 90s, and now I believe that it's not necessarily, a male-dominated field, although the numbers still are not quite equal. I am fortunate enough to work around several women that are leading police departments and several women who are partners here in my organization and other law enforcement organizations. And I believe that we are slowly making that move from a male-dominated profession, and it's a great thing.
Yes, it is. Steps in the right direction. That's why we're here today. Same question, Ariella. How have men dominated your field, if in fact they have? And is it open for people with good ideas nonetheless?
Yeah, so in my field, which is, writ large the nonprofit world, I think that it is not male dominated in the ranks, the rank and file, right? It is there are mostly females because it is a self-selecting type of work that people think that women should do or were meant to do, and more in the social service arena. And so it seems to me that in our field, it's not about the male domination of the whole field. It's the male domination, unfortunately, of the executive levels of our field. And we see this in many different fields, obviously, but it is very noticeable in the nonprofit world that there are more male CEOs and executive directors of large organizations than there are females, and that trickles down to regions, that trickles down to states, it trickles down to local communities. So I think that in our field, the glass ceiling is a little bit different because it is something where we have shattered it for the work that we're doing, and it's not seen as male or female dominated. It's just seen as work. But when you get into the upper ranks, into the executive levels, that is where we see that we have not yet broken through.
All right. Mona Curry, you're over at LAPD's Operations Valley Bureau. What's it like there? Is it male dominated?
Yes. But public safety as a whole, the field is wide open to women. Of course, just like what Ariella said, is the higher you go, the more political it gets. So then you start to see how that plays out. If you look at, the mayor of Los Angeles, the fire chief, the police chief, the emergency management director, they're all males. We've never had a female lead in those roles yet. So again, the higher you go, the more political it gets, but changes are happening around the world. And just like Leslie said, Leslie is a good example. Leslie Ramirez, chief of the LAUSD. I mean, we have our first female police school chief, and that's an awesome achievement, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Okay, thank you for your candor. Let's ask the same question for everyone in reverse order. We're going to stay with you, Mona, on this one. As a female leader, what's been the most significant barrier in your career thus far?
The competency bar for men seems a lot lower than it does for women. Women have to continually prove themselves over and over, especially in the field of public safety. You have to continually demonstrate your knowledge and work against the implicit bias in terms of gender, which is still a barrier.
Okay, and Ariella, same question for you. As a female leader, significant barriers, can you point them out?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a entering into this field as a young woman, and even as I will say a woman under 30, it was a struggle every day to try to prove myself not only as a woman but as someone who was competent enough to be able to do the job. So I think there's an age discrimination and an implicit bias against age, as well as the gender bias. So I find that that's a very big challenge in the working world in general.
And Chief Ramirez, same question for you, ma'am. How have the barriers been cleared in your path, and what are they? What have they been thus far?
Right. I have to agree with my panelists that, it seems like as a woman, you have to work a little bit harder in order to achieve some of the same results. Sometimes you have to really be careful of not getting caught up with distractions, not always getting, the commitments and the buy-ins and some of the support, mechanisms that are in place right of hand. You have to work a little bit harder, I believe, in order to get those. And it shouldn't be, but it's still like was mentioned earlier, there's still a lot of work ahead in order to really bring equality in those areas.
Okay, Miriam, the goal is equality, obviously. What barriers have you faced?
So I'm going to bring a little bit of perspective because I come from different countries and cultures, and I have a different experience. For me, coming from Morocco, where I had to see my two grandmothers, no matter their race, and going through the same struggle, and seeing my mothers, and it's I've been able to see over the years about how it was a struggle for those women to just be able to be or have an allowance from their husbands. It sounds really amazing, but that's what I have witnessed growing up. And for me, as a little girl, I definitely wanted to change that. And I could see that it was complicated, because it was a male dominance, and being a woman, you could be promised, many things could happen to you. So I come from a whole different situation where at 11 years old, I was already promised, and I really wanted to leave because I didn't want that to happen to me. So I'm bringing an extreme perspective here. And I worked, in Europe as well. And so, in a very male dominance where you have not only to work very hard, but to make sure that nothing happened to you. When I came to the United States, however, it was for me an incredible experience because this is the first time I was able to be in touch and see powerful women. So of course, everybody has different experience, but for me, who went from Africa to Europe and to America, I was just blown away by these women that were strong and they could set boundaries and they can speak up and they can have a voice. So, to me, it was just incredible, positive to learn. And I loved American women because they are so strong and they taught me so much. So it's a pleasure to hear my panel speak, because what they are, when you are all representing, the work that needs to be done ahead, at the same time, you are talking about how women are doing well. This is inspiring to me because it just seems like I cross centuries, different, from different, continents. So, so I just want to share my inspiration of thanks to the American women.
That's powerful, Miriam. Thank you for reminding us of our blessings for who we are and where we are. I'd like to continue with the questions, and we'll just kind of round robin style. This one's for Ariella. How do you balance work and life responsibilities? I know you mentioned a moment ago you have two boys. How do you make that work?
Very, very carefully. Or not at all. And I think that question has changed since the pandemic started. So if you had asked me before, how did I make it work? And I'm a single parent of two elementary school aged boys. I had to hire outside help so that I could remain at work during normal business hours and somebody else could retrieve them from school and be with them until I could come home. And now I am home and they are home and they are learning from home and I'm trying to work from home. And I have found the absence of a work-life balance now because I work from where I live, and there's no difference now between my office and my apartment. It's now one place. So I think it's very interesting in this era of COVID to ask that question because I definitely have found it to be a very, very big challenge. And I know that many other working parents have found it to be a challenge as well, that there is no longer that work-life balance. Now it's just work, life, and everything in between, right? That's coming up while COVID is happening. So I do think it's a very interesting question and one that has yet to be answered.
Well, everybody has a unique response, no doubt. I noticed Chief Ramirez was nodding in affirmation. Let's bounce the question in your direction, ma'am. How have you done? How have you? Or are you still working at it, the work-life balance?
I am. It is very much a challenge and a struggle. I am a mother of four. And so I do understand, the situation of trying to balance work and family. And I believe for me, it has to be very intentional. I have to make sure I prioritize both in different ways. And so, I'm fortunate now that, as I've taken on this role, which has been very demanding of my time and energy and commitment and dedication, my children are a little bit older. But I have been on this, department and been in law enforcement for 30 years. So obviously I've been a mom through the times when they were younger and there's different challenges along the way. But again, for me, I've really tried to strike that balance of managing both. But it has been that I've had to make it intentional at times, making myself carve out that time, for family and for work, and also trying to move forward in my career and some of the commitments that required. So I do understand. I think the benefit from it is as I have, people that come on this into this career after me, I can truly say I understand how difficult it is to manage, especially in this career field where, sometimes schedules are not always, certain. A lot of times there is, that your day can extend without notice. And it's hard to do that, and balance a family and still have that quality time, and be involved and engaged in the lives of your children as they're getting older. It's present at every stage and every age of their life. So it has been a challenge. I think I've been somewhat successful in that my kids are healthy and they're striving and they're doing well. But again, sometimes I've had to make very intentional and very hard choices between the two.
All right. Work-life balance. It
Yes.
splashes into everything. Miriam, how about you? We're talking partners and children. How are you making it work? The balance, that is.
Yes, so it is definitely very hard, because you want to be a mother, you want to be doing your best professionally. And I just want to share, I agree with all my panelists, friends here. But I would say that, for instance, during the COVID, where I've been working from home, just like Ariella, and it's very hard to make boundaries. Everybody's in the same class in their Zoom, and, so it is all complication. But I would say that I want to share with you is that during the COVID, Parents for Peace helpline calls have tripled. And, and so what it became hard and a challenge for me is that I got absorbed by the calls of all those families all over the country who were worried about their kids being recruited into extremism, and and they were online, and so I was so consumed, the phone didn't stop ringing, and I'm a first responder. And at some point I realized that I was neglecting my own kids, and I was thinking, do I know what they are doing? We're in the same house, but they are online and they're teenagers. I mean, my oldest is much older now, but it was a little bit of a crisis, I have to admit. I wish if I could claim that I'm a super mother and a woman, but I did find myself thinking, okay, so I'm helping all those families and trying to save them, but what are my kids doing online? And am I present? It's not because they're quiet. So it was a little bit of a crisis. So I had to kind of step back and make sure that my priorities were clear and to make sure that I was paying attention to my kids. So that was a hard transition because, as you know, COVID was tough.
It still is. And thank you for your honesty in that reply. I remember Leslie spoke about intentionality. Mona, has that been an issue for you as you work on your work-life balance too, that you have to be intentional in your goal setting?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When you work in public safety, the job can kind of creep over into your personal life because it's not a 9-to-5 job. So even before COVID, and now with cell phones, we're always checking our text messages, checking our emails. And I think what we need to do is, make sure that we at least try to set some boundaries. So, for example, when you're at home or, when it's time for you to say, read to your child, at bedtime, you're not checking your phone, you're not checking your messages. You just really have to become, serious about that boundary because it's so easy to, intertangle work and home life.
It's a fantastic reply and very endearing for all of us. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's going through something right now. And I think your words and your honesty throughout this conversation, all of you, has just been exceptional because people think you've arrived, you're at the pinnacle, you can't possibly have problems. Obviously, you're coping as best you can, and your willingness to share these stories means more than words can say. I'd like to ask, before we open up the floor for the public questions, because we do have people tuned in with us and they have questions too, what advice would you give the next generation of female leaders? That's fundamental to our conversation today is words of inspiration going forward. What advice would you give, given a chance? I'll bounce this question in Ariela's direction.
Oh, what advice would I, and I think about this often, what advice would I give myself all those years ago? I think it is to not limit yourself, to know that whatever it is that you want to accomplish, you can accomplish. That the doors may be harder to open, but they can be and will be opened, and that you have to continue to push forward, and you will be the next trendsetters for the next generation of women. And so, we all sit here now in our careers and long time in our careers, but we weren't always this way. We were once young, I will speak for myself. I'm not going to, talk about anybody else's age. And so we were once young, and I think that you don't want to lose the sense that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish, as long as you're willing to try.
Okay. Miriam, how about you? What advice would you give young women and girls, folks of all genders who might be tuned in right now?
Yeah, so I would say that, to kind of really work on your self-confidence, because I think that there is a lot of women that are very competent, very bright, but there is a wall, and this wall is something that they, maybe from many generations that we inherit from one woman to another, is to really, trust yourself, be in tune of your, of what comes to you naturally, to kind of listen to your intuition. It's valid. It's, and I think that women often are afraid of not saying the right thing. Men are more forgiven to make mistakes but women it's much harder for them. So I would say, don't be afraid, be daring and be okay making mistakes. And mainly I would say that women work much harder, and I've heard it across. And I would say be daring by taking care of yourself to make sure that there is room for yourself.
Okay, self-care is vital. Thank you for that reminder. Mona, how about you? What advice do you have for the next generation who might be tuned in right now?
Well, in terms of women going into the public safety field, I would say don't feel like you have to act like your male colleagues because you bring skills to the table that they can't touch. Okay, become a leader and see yourself as a leader and ask yourself, am I a leader? And if not, if you don't feel like you are, then that's what you got to work on. But you don't have to, especially in the public safety field, you don't have to, put on a really tough persona if that's not who you are. So, underscoring what Miriam said, just be yourself.
Okay. And Chief Leslie, how about you? Advice for folks who may want to follow in your footsteps or blaze new trails. What advice do you have?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, believe in yourself. If it's your goal and your ambition, you can make it happen. It takes work. It takes dedication. And most importantly, I think it takes being honest with yourself. And the hardest thing for us to do sometimes is to self-assess, and be honest in those assessments. We all have areas that, we excel. We all have areas that we can benefit from development. And so along the way, leadership starts early. It doesn't just start when you decide to turn on a switch. Developing leadership qualities start early on in your career, and take advantage, of every part of your career. Absorb what you can from it. I was fortunate to have several mentors and people that, brought me into certain positions along the way. And I didn't take those for granted. I learned everything I could from them, and it helped me to become the person that I am. But again, along the way, you have to realize, that the areas that you can improve, and make a conscious effort, to improve in those areas. But I think in closing on this subject, I would say I absolutely agree that, it is absolutely okay to bring a female perspective, to the role. We all grow from that, and you don't have to conform, to a male perspective in any way, shape, or form. And I hope that any women that are looking to advance or move into leadership roles will bring that unique part of that to the job.
Chief Leslie, you just anticipated my next question. What are the skills that women bring to the table that give us an advantage? Can you elaborate?
I just think that they bring a different mindset. They bring something to the table that maybe is a different perspective, if you would. It's refreshing. It's something that we need to have. Anytime that you have a team, let's say you bring together, like I do frequently, I like to have different perspectives. I don't pretend to bring everything to the table. I'm fortunate enough to have colleagues that I work with, and I have a lot of talented women that are on my team. I appreciate, what they bring to the table, and the ideas and some of the things that they bring to help push us forward. And so I just think with women coming to the table, it just adds a whole new dimension, if you would, one that's long overdue and very much welcomed.
Miriam, you spoke about your lived experiences a short time ago. What do you think the skills are that women bring to the table that are distinctive?
I think that women have the possibility to go beyond ego, so they are more inclusive and looking at the big picture, and are really good problem solver without, having the ego in the way. That's what I would say.
Okay, that's a powerful statement right there. Ariella, how about you? Skill sets that women bring that are unique and distinctive.
I think it's really interesting because I have two boys that I'm raising as a single mom. And, my answer would have been, before I had children, would have been, women bring more empathy. But I look at my own children, and I hope that I'm raising my boys with the same kind of empathy that they will have, that I feel like everybody should have for each other, for the human race, for everybody that they come into contact with. So I will say that I think that there is more concentration on women having empathy for others, which should actually be more universal. So, but I do think that that's one key area where there has been a difference in the past.
You preached a sermon right there. Mona, what do you think?
Well, empathy is a big one, and I think women are more developed in that area. But I think women also, they don't need to necessarily demonstrate, say, physical strength, less testosterone in the room. So, when you have that, I think consensus can be established quicker. Good leaders know how to listen, and women are really great at that.
Okay. Since we're in the public safety space right now, speaking with Ms. Mona, what do you see as the future of public safety?
Well, just like a lot of the other sectors, in all the sectors, it's evolving. In terms of policing, it's playing out right in front of us. Emergency management, that's evolving with the need to incorporate public health a little bit more seamlessly, as we've seen with some issues over COVID and distribution and messaging and a lot of those things. But for women, I really encourage you to take a real hard look at the profession, because women are leaders and what you bring to the table is valuable. I mean, you guys have all heard that saying, if we had more women leaders, we'd have less wars. I mean, there is truth to that for sure.
Okay. Miriam, what are your thoughts on this matter? You mentioned a short time ago that you are also a first responder. You get those calls. What do you see, therefore, as the future for public safety?
So I think that I see some positive step forward, because I feel like more we invest in prevention, more we invest in first responders as early as possible, and more will be in a better place. I would say that I am working very hard to get social workers invested in this, because they know naturally have to deal with this issue. Majority are women, and so I do see a lot of positivity in that direction. Although I agree with Mona, I would like to see more public health awareness into this setting. And I just want to say something to Ariella, that has two boys, and I think Beverly, you have two boys as well. I would say that the difference will happen with mothers, and as a mother of 3 girls, I had so many challenges with other mothers of boys where, they were raising their boys in a certain way. And I would say that, a mother like Ariella, who wants to make sure that her sons have empathy, makes me feel good, because I'm thinking, okay, mothers have a big part on raising boys and changing, our world. I'm sorry, I went off topic here, but I just wanted to say that.
I think that is a powerful endorsement of the testimony we heard from Ariella a moment ago regarding her sons and how she's raising them. I'd also like to get the chief in this mix, because you're with the school police. You see the young people. And what's public safety look like for you in the future when it comes to dealing with entire communities of our children? I mean, the LA Unified School Police Department, you serve 700,000 students and their teachers. That's massive. And the responsibility there is all over the map. So public service, public safety has to be front of mind for you on a regular basis. What do you think the future looks like?
Yes, you're right. We do have a very large district, and we have a very big impact, on the future. In fact, hence our mission of serving our students, serving our students today is what we're serving our future, and we realize that, and we don't take that lightly. There is a call for change. We all know that there is a call for change right now. What I hope to see out of that in the end is that we find a way to build stronger, relationships, and that we realize that public safety is not one-dimensional. We're all in it. We're all in it for public safety. And so even though we're going through some periods of change right now, in the end, I hope that we emerge stronger, and that we work together as a community, as law enforcement organizations, and just in general, that we all move forward together. Like I said, we do not take lightly that we have, close to 700,000 students, our future in our hands, and we want nothing more to be here to protect them now when they need us, and to develop them and help them achieve, because they are our future. And we want to have the strongest relationships and have the strongest, representations moving forward. As we see the years ahead come, it starts now. It starts with the relationships that we build, and so we're hoping for stronger relationships at the end of this period of change.
All right. And last but not least, Ariella, you brought your children into the conversation and kind of set us in a fresh direction. So for that, I'm grateful. What do you think is the future of public safety? Because in the anti-hate space, you deal with that. Talk to me about what you see the future.
Yeah,
and we'll be at this rate.
I think it's really interesting. I think that like Chief Ramirez said, there is a call right now for change. What that looks like and what that will be, I think remains to be seen. But I do see that there's a more comprehensive approach being taken to public safety. Like Mona spoke about, there's the public health factor. There's also the mental health factor that is now being taken more seriously and should be taken seriously. And to know that public safety is a very all-encompassing kind of job. The way that you keep the public safe is through many different means. And so law enforcement is one of those means, and all of the public sector departments, the ones Mona works for, and then the agencies like Miriam and I work for, all of these are comprehensive approaches to the same ideal of wanting to keep the public safe. And so I see that as being a way moving forward that's going to make it better, hopefully, and make our community safer, because everybody will feel like they have a stake in trying to create a safer public.
All right, thank you so much. We have a question now directed to the ladies in law enforcement. So I'll start with Chief Leslie, and we'll follow up with Mona, of course. Having to constantly prove yourself as a female in law enforcement can be exhausting. So what in particular keeps you motivated? Again, this first for Chief Leslie.
Right, absolutely right. And it can be very daunting, to constantly have to prove yourself and have to move forward in very difficult times. For me, what keeps me going is, especially for the school police department, is just my passion and my history with this department. I feel like I have had a hand in building, this department for the last 30 years. And it's very personal to me to make sure that we are, the best that we can be, that we serve in the best way that we can. And so for me, it's just a long-term investment that I've made and wanting to see us succeed. And like you said, Beverly, it goes back to understanding the importance of the demographics that we serve, the students, the parents, the communities, we have a hand in that. And, there's, for people to entrust us with their students, with their kids, we can't take that lightly. And so that's what drives me every day and what keeps me motivated. I've been there many times over the course of my 30 years with students at some of the most challenging of times, families as well, parents as well. And I wouldn't change that for the world. If I was a help or a support in any way, if I led a student in a better direction than maybe they would have otherwise went, or if I was there for a family in a time of need, then for me, it was well worth it.
Okay, Mona Curry, another lady in law enforcement. Your thoughts on this one, being a female in that area of public service, it can be exhausting, in the words of our questioner. This question comes from Lucy Sandoval, by the way. Thank you, Lucy. Again, Mona, what keeps you motivated?
I think if you can really stick to your established values, remember why you wanted to work in the field of public safety in the first place, whether you want to help communities, help them prepare for disasters, emergencies that are going to come their way. You just have to keep reminding yourself, why am I doing this job? Even if you find yourself in a position where you have to keep proving yourself, really there's that whole undercurrent of, I'm really here because I want to help people, and that's it.
And they deserve your best, and I know they get it. Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Leslie. This question is for Ariella and for Miriam. We'll start with Miriam, please. How can we educate ourselves about right-wing extremism and help educate others?
So this is something that I deal with every single day, not just, white supremacists, but all kind of supremacy. And I would say that, unfortunately, learning things, from a very quick media platform, and with all respect, Beverly, because I really appreciate your work, but I would say that educate yourself about what it is instead of quickly wondering what's happening. I think we were talking about public health, mental health. I'm realizing that, for instance, something that I would not have known, even though I'm a therapist, is that for the past 5 years, dealing with over 100 cases in hate, is that there's not one case that is not connected to grievance, to an identity crisis, or to public health. And I would say, before you make a judgment, really understand what is happening and how are we all interconnected to this issue, and what is it that we can do as a country. I'm always thinking about this issue as the HIV of the 80s, as the problem of public health is be careful to make it a political issue, and remember that this is a public health issue. Learn about it so to see about what to do about this.
Right. Ariella, you're in that same space. What do you think we can do to educate ourselves? It sounds like, from Marion's perspective, a deeper dive is warranted. Would you agree?
I would agree. I also think that we need to look at extremism as a spectrum, that there are extremists in every form, in every ideology. It is not everybody who goes to the extremes, but there are extremes of everything. And so before we can get to the point of rehabilitation, we have to figure out what pushes those individuals towards the extremes, what elements are doing that, and then fix those elements in society as a whole. And this goes for any type of extremism, any type of hatred. ADL really believes that hate is a learned behavior and that hate can be unlearned. And so just like, like Mariam talked about, we need to take this comprehensive approach to try to fix society as a whole if we want to stop people from going to the extremes of any form of ideology.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a live question coming in from Cinnamon Basco, who wants to know, I'll address this to Mona first. Did you have trouble finding mentors or people who really took a stake in your success?
I really didn't have trouble finding mentors. I had a lot of mentors, both male and female. Two females that I probably should highlight one is Ellen Oppenheim. She was a former general manager of Rec and Parks years ago. She believed in me when I didn't even see that in myself at that time. I remember Margaret Farnham. She was with the LA Coliseum. I remember Margaret saying to me once that she wasn't allowed in the press box when she first started working. And I remember going in the press box and thinking, wow, Margaret couldn't even, make an appearance in this press box years ago. So she just kind of taught me perseverance, and I loved her for that. But if you're having trouble finding mentors, Women in Homeland Security, a co-sponsor of this event, you attach yourself to that group of women and you will find yourself a mentor, and probably some really good ones too.
And our next question, this is for Chief Leslie. It's from Vivian Gerlach. She'd like to know, is there a role, or what is the role, for women in public safety on the civilian side and non-sworn positions? Can you elaborate?
Yes, there definitely is a role. Public safety is a combination of sworn personnel and civilian personnel that support that mission. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. One of our most successful teams that we erected over the last 3 years was our partnership with our Student Health and Human Services, where we pair a sworn school police officer with one of our licensed clinical social workers. And as we've talked about in this forum, mental health issues are real, and we need to address them. And so that partnership was one that we saw a need for and that we formed a partnership with. So that's just one example of the many ways of which we are stronger together, if you would, with those women that are leading in civilian positions. I will also mention that, behind the scenes of our department and probably every organization, we have strong women leaders that are doing the support mechanism, for those that are serving, in field related services. So it's absolutely something that, we have. We need, we should continue. And there's so many behind the scenes that just go unmentioned, and they don't really get the recognition that they probably deserve. But that was just one example. There's probably several others. If we had the time, I could talk about, how we're supported by civilian and specifically females and women in civilian positions.
Okay, I have another question for you, Chief, and this is from Martin Figueroa. He'd like to know, what's the vetting process for officers placed in the school district, and what kind of extra training do they receive?
So our officers go through the same, screening process and background process that any other law enforcement agency in the state of California mandates, that we have checks in certain areas. So we follow those along with every other agency. But in addition to that, when we do find those that are qualified and we bring onto our department specifically to serve students and serve children, we go through additional training on campus law enforcement and other areas that give us specific expertise in policing in a law enforcement or an educational setting. That's just a real high level overview of that. But yes, and we do meet all state standards. And then we look for those that specifically can thrive and serve in an educational environment.
Thank you so much. This question comes from the moderator, me. Miriam, I'd like to know, what would you tell your 16-year-old self about opportunities for women and joy in your journey?
I would say really have a good time and relax.
Okay. And Ariella, same question for you. If you could get back in the Wayback Machine, your 16-year-old self.
I had very strong female mentors and very strong females in my life to look up to, and family members and my friends. So I would say that you can continue on whatever path you're on, or switch the path you're on, but don't be afraid of change. Change will come, and change has come, and we all know that it has over the last almost year and a half. We've all had to acclimate ourselves to this new normal, as we're calling it. So I think that there is a fear of things being different, a fear of change as a bad thing. And I think that sometimes we need to embrace change in order to move forward in life.
Okay, thank you for that. Mona, this one's for you. For someone starting out in public safety, do you have any advice?
Well, what I would say is, don't be afraid to really believe in yourself, because you will feel a little bit insecure in the field, just because it is still largely, especially at the top, we talked about that, male dominated, but you just got to step through when that door opens, position yourself so that you're ready and feel confident to take that leap. And sometimes that's just what it is. It's a leap. And then, once you get to, through that door, then things, they will click and they will fall into place. So, my advice to people just starting out is really just believe in yourself, develop that confidence in yourself, and always trust your gut.
Okay, Chief Leslie, variation on that same question. Young women and girls look to panels like this one for guidance in their careers. What survival nuggets do you live by, and any best practices you care to share before we wrap this up?
I would just say, to stick with it. If it's your interest, if it's your passion, don't give up. It's not easy. I know for law enforcement, I can tell you it's not always a glamorous, job to do. It's tough. I know one of the questions, and I'm probably going off a little bit, was, what would you say to your 16-year-old self? For me, I would absolutely say, for me and for anyone that's looking at, going into public safety or following in this career path, I would say, from my personal experience, push through that academy. Don't give up. It will challenge you. But in the end, if this is your passion, if this is what you want to do, it's well worth it. Helping people, knowing that you've made a difference. And it's in the end, when you weigh it, you're going to be glad that you did it. It's well worth it. Public service is difficult, but it's so rewarding when you do it right.
And Miriam, you were nodding a moment ago. What are your thoughts on this? Nuggets you might share with young women and girls tuned in today for some inspiration.
So I would say that, don't be afraid of dreaming big. Really don't be afraid, because there will be a lot of blocks on the way, but really allow yourself to dream big, to explore, and don't be consumed with fear. I think that's one of my regrets when I was young, is to be always anxious and not enjoying the journey. And I wish, if I were to go back, I would say, enjoy it, explore, be present to it.
Okay, it's time now for final statements from our impressive panel. We'll start with Ariella. Your closing thoughts before we call it a day.
I think that in the world that we live in today, I always like to say that I don't think that gender matters as much as it used to, that we're all people and that we can all accomplish what we want to accomplish, what we put our minds to. And as long as we remember, even whether you're female or male, that you have the strength within you to push through. And as Miriam said so eloquently, don't be afraid and don't let fear consume you. I think that we will have very successful people in the next generation that we see like the women on this panel today. So thank you.
Thank you. Mona Curry, your closing thoughts, please.
Well, we have our first female FEMA administrator coming on, and we have our first vice president, female vice president. So there was a quote I heard the other day, and it's been resonating with me. And it's, if you can see her in the position, you can be in the position. So don't be afraid to, if you have to break that glass ceiling by whatever means you need to do that with, but the ceilings, they're being lifted. So go out there and do what you can do, and have faith and confidence in yourself.
Thank you, Mona. We have all been witnesses to real progress.
Yes,
Chief
we
Leslie,
have.
your closing thoughts.
I just want to say that I feel like leadership is absolutely a privilege. I am very honored that my district selected me to be the first female police chief for the Los Angeles School Police Department. I don't take that lightly. And I hope that in some way, in everything else that, I hope to do to move forward with this department and to serve this district, I hope in some small way that I am some type of encouragement or some type of message, if you will, to anyone that's following in a public safety field or any other field, to know that they can do it and that they can lead. I was, like I said earlier, I was fortunate enough to early on in my career have a female police chief way back before it was very common. And even though she didn't intentionally mentor me, her being in that position was encouraging to me. And I hope that by me being in this position, in some way, I'll encourage others.
I'm sure you will continue to do so. You already have. Thank you, Chief Leslie. And finally, Miriam, you get the last word.
So I would say that, maybe as women, it's a good place to recognize that we have turned a page, and it's good to recognize that women are in a better place today. And, and so to kind of move forward into the idea that we are not in the place where we were 100 years ago or 30 years ago, not even 20 years ago. And that is good. So this is important to recognize this. And I would agree, like Ariella said, about, it's not about men and women anymore. Maybe we are more connected with each other and we enrich each other in different ways. And I just want to say that please remember, we are in the United States and we are so lucky as women to be in this country because it's not really taken for granted for other countries, for people like me who goes to, to different places.
Yes, thank you for reminding us of that. And as your moderator, I get to say a little last something, but I'll keep it brief because you all have been so eloquent and so generous. I really can't improve on what you've said. I want all of our folks in the audience to know that if you can see it, you can be it. And these women are proof positive. So many thanks to Mona Curry from the LAPD, Miriam Churchill from Parents for Peace. I just love that title. Ariella Lowenstein from the Anti-Defamation League. And finally, Chief Leslie Ramirez with the Los Angeles Unified School Police. Your candor and your commitment, making our world a better place, is much appreciated, as is your time today. Thank you all. And everyone, please stay safe.